Hello and welcome back to the Paddle and Fin podcast. I'm Brian.
It's Ricketts.
Holy shnikes.
Back again after another layoff.
You got to do this more than once a month, my man.
You got to talk to my wife, man. She's got the honey-do list stacked to the ceiling. I spent 4 weeks on the garage, and then after that, she goes, I want to buy paint. I was like, paint for what? She goes, I want to paint the inside of the house. We 5 gallons of paint later, we're coming back, and next thing you know, we're patching up stuff. And she's doing the majority of the painting, man. She's good to go. But, I hate painting. I'd rather be punched in the face than have to paint anything. So
yeah, I feel you on that, my man. I feel you.
Did we
on
lose
that.
Chris? I think we lost Chris.
I can still hear.
You still there? Okay, your picture froze up. So,
well, with that being said,
yeah.
we're gonna get a little funky in here tonight. We got none other than the Funk Master himself, Mr. Funk from Jackson Kayaks, and well, he's part of Jackson Kayaks, so let's do that. But he's a man of
a very tiny part.
Yeah, there we go.
I wouldn't go that far.
He's a man of many talents. We were just talking about a big buck he put down this week, and he's known for being behind the camera, which I know you got a photo that's on the front cover of the first kayak fishing quarterly magazine coming out. So
that
huge.
Made my day. That was absolutely awesome.
Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. So we got a bunch of stuff we want to jump in and into here this evening, and we'll just kick it off, man. We always start with the old question, how you got into fishing and kayak fishing in general, man.
Man, I was born into fishing. My father was an avid fisherman, and there's pictures of me as a little bitty kid underneath the Chesapeake Bay Bridge with the rod tied to the side of the boat because I had lost one, on a trip before, and he wasn't worried about losing the young, and he was worried about losing the rod. But so I've been doing that forever and a day, and for us, I started out with, after marrying my bride, well, close to 27 years ago, we started out with a canoe because it was the boat we could afford, and fell in love with it, and we were canoeists for years and years and years until my son got so big that we really needed more room in our canoe. So I bought him a kayak, and he paddled it by himself. And, it kind of just that master, the captain of my own vessel type deal. You could see him light up.
Yeah.
And then just one day, my bride Angie jumped in it, and I saw her do the same. And it was kind of like you could just see being, in your own vessel and having your own way, and you could just see this assuredness get over her in her own boat. And I said, well, there goes my other canoe partner. So she ended up with the second kayak. I was actually the last kayaker in the family. The first one I bought, which is the reason I do my videos the way that I do, I went and found one that was rated, for my fat guy. But it was like 275, which is what at the time, that's about what I weighed. And I jumped in that thing in January in blue jeans, and water shot up through the scupper holes and soaked me to death. And I like to froze to death, and I couldn't take it back fast enough, and it wasn't until later that I realized, no, just because it says it's rated for your weight doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for your weight.
Yeah.
You need to find one that's rated over what your big old butt is, And I went down to, I think, Black Creek Outfitters down in Jacksonville. And forgive me if I get that name wrong, but they had a Native Magic 145 that was their tandem solo boat. And I bought that one and fell in love with it, and paddled it all the way up till and started. And then it was more like the canoes that I loved, the hybrid style boat. But and then it's just been ever since then. The guy that I actually went to take the pictures for with the Commander 140, Henry Jackson, who is our river conservancy guy here that actually cares for our river in the place now. It's kind of cool. We still get to work together. But Henry's the one that actually introduced my son to the Jackson team, who got pulled on first. And then I was just the dad taking pictures of the kid. And Jackson said, hey, we need you too. So into that story there,
Nice, dude.
Well, segue into your videos, before we started the podcast, I was telling Chris, everybody knows him through his photography and his videos, because if you go on YouTube and you search anything with Jackson Kayak, you're going to run across your videos. It's inevitable. You know what I mean? So you just give that no BS review that people like. You say, hey, the boat's heavy. Hey, if there's one thing I could change about it, it'd be the cost, right? Because it costs an arm and a leg. A lot of these boats do. And so why did you do the first video? Was it just because you want to do some fun? Was it to promote the brand? I mean, what made you go down that path?
The first video I did, and it was for just promoting the brand, to tell people about what we were doing with them. And I want to say my first one was it might have been, I think it may have been a big tuna. I'm not 100% positive which one it was, but it was just to kind of show folks about it. I mean, I had no stage presence, if you will, and nobody ever trained me to do anything like that. And it's funny because I usually set up next to the boat landing when I'm doing them, and you get people just looking like, what is that knucklehead he's talking about? He's talking to a box, and it was my camera set up with trying to keep the wind off of it. But it was just a way of telling folks. And then, when the folks started getting feedback and saying, man, I appreciate it. I like what you're doing. And it means something to me because, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Drew Gregory, but I watched enough of his videos and then fished with him enough to see that, all right, you got a guy that might be $125 and he ain't nothing but muscle. There ain't an ounce of fat on him. And he can, balance on a hard-boiled egg. I mean, it doesn't show me anything to see him standing in a boat to fish.
Yeah.
Now you put a big old boy in that thing and show me what he can do, and it'll make a difference. And I think probably most folks that do identify with what I've done, they see that, hey, balancing is more about the person really than it is the boat. Now a good boat will help you do that, but it takes a lot on our part to be able to stand and balance. So, but if you have a decent, stable boat, it'll certainly make that part easier. And
you got to get your sea legs. Absolutely, 100%. Doesn't matter what platform you're on, unless it's a blue sky. You don't need your sea legs on a blue sky.
Like Earth. That's like standing on Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just pulled up your YouTube channel. Your first video was on the big tuna and big rig, and it was a comparison video.
Okay.
Yeah.
4.
They're great boats. Even the big tuna was a little too tippy for me. It felt a little wobbly, especially in the high position. But
I
big
agree.
rig,
And I paddled it. It was on my first boondoggle that I took that boat out. Yeah. And man, I was way across on Cars Park, and the wind came up, and I wasn't positive I was making it back. I mean, I still get a little on the heart and the throat side when I'm in big water, which is why I love a low position in the boat.
Yeah.
I was pure chicken over there in Panama. I'm telling you, them some of those waves. I got hit in the ear one time with a wave that I never saw coming, and I was it was definitely I was a spooky as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs.
It's a cool boat though, with the built-in live well in the middle. I've used that live well a lot. It's definitely a cool boat. It's a very cool boat, but for me, it's a little too tippy. I think my favorite was probably the DT out of the bunch, and I know you're a big fan of that boat too. Oh,
love it, and that's why I still have mine, and I'm not giving it up. I've got the new HD, and it's a cool boat, but the DT is here to stay. I'm keeping mine.
Interesting.
Yep. Well, very cool, man. So, how long have you been a part of Jackson officially?
I think officially 7 and maybe 8 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, because I came on right when the CUDA was launched. So my boy Ethan came in at that time, and then I was y'all remember the glow boat, the Illuminati boat. I went up to actually photograph him at Jackson and took pictures of that glow boat. And that was when the Jackson guy said, "Hey, wait a minute, we need him," So that was,
oh wow,
yeah. The picture of me actually behind that glow boat in the water. We were freezing to death. It was midnight when we took that shot, but that was the shot that everybody got to see from that boat that made them realize what it could do. I still think it was a cool boat. My brother still has a Illuminati Kusa.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but that was when it was, and I believe that was 2012.
That's cool.
That was a long time ago.
Yes.
So how long have you been doing the photography type stuff? Is that pretty much when you first started getting into it? Is that like an old hobby that you've been doing, or?
It was before that, but I actually ended up. My family and I are huge air show fans. Now,
Okay,
y'all
cool.
hold on. I got dogs fighting over there. Baby, come beat
It's
them
all
in the
good.
head with a hammer. Oh, yeah, but I actually started taking pictures at air shows, and that's where I wanted longer lenses to start getting up to the airplanes. And I'd always taken fishing pictures and stuff, and a few hunting pictures with just little disposable stuff, and it was during that time that I started posting pictures of my planes and a few critters that I had shot on the Georgia Outdoor News forum, which is the GON forum, was real popular at the time. And a bunch of rednecks just with cameras started challenging each other. And there was a couple that were really, really good. They'd sold work and published images, and they kind of worked with those of us that were dumb as a sack of hammers and pulled us along to train us up. And that's when I actually fell in love with shooting like I was shooting, and starting with all the wildlife and other things like that. And it just, when you get a camera in your hand, you just want to do it with everything. And I'd see shots that I'd want to replicate or try to get and learn. And with digital, you can afford to do that because I can screw up 1,000 shots and it doesn't cost me anything.
Yeah, right.
But and that's what it was. It was just a slow progression of getting into that, and it turned out to be a pretty good blessing because taking a lot of pictures of fishing and hunting through the years. I lost my daddy 10 years ago to cancer, but it was during that time when my camera started really coming out. So during that time I got a lot more pictures of him, and which is much more important to me now, and not knowing at the time that we were going to lose him. But to me, it was a mixed blessing, that I now I've got those images, even though it was just me playing with a camera. And it might be a 10-inch crappie, which doesn't matter to anybody, but having that picture of him with that is special.
Heck yeah, man. That's cool.
If y'all hear that squeaky toy in the background, I'm sorry, it's a big dumb dog over there.
Oh, it's all good, man. It is all good. So you're kind of a jack of all trades, man, right? But you don't really do a lot of tournament fishing.
Oh no, sir.
No.
I know a lot of folks have seen my and I'm not ugly about it, man. If folks want tournament fish, you do it. But tournaments bring out a dark side of me that I do not like to be near. I mean, there's evil in me, and it comes out in tournaments. And it's not cheating. It's just I want to destroy everybody, and I want to, I don't play well. I don't compete well. I don't share my toys with others, in tournaments. Yeah. And I've learned to me that it's one of them dark sides that I don't care to be around. It's too much pressure. And see, you got to understand, I was never overly competitive. I was the fat kid that always end up, never getting picked last for anything other than tug of war anyway. So
yeah.
I've never been much of a team player. I've never been much for competition because, if I was that kid that was always up with 2 outs and bases loaded, and oh my God, here comes Chris. That's the way that was me, and so I don't like competing at all.
Yeah,
I can relate, man. That competitive edge, man, it just makes you be somebody else, and like you said, the pressure, man. It's I don't know. I'm going through some struggles right now, and what I'm gonna do next year, and it's just like
it brings out the best in some. Oops, sorry, I got you there. I think I lost you. I saw a little blurb. It brings out the best in some folks, but it is definitely not the best of me.
Yeah, man. Well, that's the thing, though, man. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's funny. I had a conversation with Aaron Steiger, of all people, and he was talking about the tournament on St. Clair where he took off at like noon. He's like, "What am I doing here? I can go be with my kids." He's like,
"Yeah,
who am I trying to impress? I know I can come out here and catch a 20-inch smallmouth anytime. Like, what am I trying to prove, you know? So it's one of those things, like you said, man. I mean, some people, you know, they're all for it, like the Josh Stewarts and Matthew Scotch, Jody Queen, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Guys like
Yep.
that, you know? But at the same time, like, I'm kind of falling in line with you right now. I'm like, for what, you know? Like, why do I want to stress out and put myself through that, you know?
I
I've been
fished
known
the
to take
Hobie-
naps during tournaments.
Yeah. Well, I fished the Hobie Worlds up in Kentucky Lake that one year. You know, I went up there and I
Yeah.
went for kayak fish to write for them about it. So I was going to go up there and just be like their representative. Well, I said, to me, the best way to represent would be to fish the tournament. That was the best way for me to write about it. So I paid my entry fee and I started fishing. And the first day I was in like 9th or 10th place and was doing well. Well, the second day I hit a school of, I call them McDonald's bass, but they're quarter pounders, you know, but it was probably 14-inch fish. But I burned 3 bags of wacky worms, catching so many fish, and I couldn't break away for those 14-inch fish. I was having so much fun.
Yeah.
You couldn't have knocked the smile off my face with a side grinder, and I wasn't going to quit. I wasn't going to chase big fish for nothing. I was having a good old time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You know, and that's the thing. Like, in the middle of a tournament, it's hard to leave that. You know, it's like, yeah, in a tournament situation, you want to move on and find the bigger fish. But what are you going to have more fun doing? You know,
Right.
scratching your head trying to find these big fish, or just sitting there catching 100 fish in a day, you know? Like, I'll
Yeah.
take the second of the two, you know?
Absolutely.
And I'm a species chaser, so I love catching multiple species and as many as I can in a year's time, and so it's tough for me just to grind on bass. You know, I love chasing big gar. That's one of my favorite things to do around here. And you know, of course, we're also do a little bit of eating fish every once in a while. So I'll chase big bluegill or crappie or whatever I can get to go in the fryer. But
Bowfin.
yep, and which, you know, bowfin. Everybody hears me talk about them in the swamp.
Yeah.
If I had a place nearby that was loaded with bowfin, I'd stay broke on white spinner baits and black buzz baits. I would stay broke on them. I promise you.
Yeah. We'll touch on your swamp fishing here in a minute, but I think the tournament thing's fun. You know, I like when Brian and Jay came down to Cowan Lake, they came here in Ohio to fish. That was fun because that was more of like just a couple bros hanging out. You know what I mean? Just
Right.
a group of friends, and it was more bragging rights. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
and of course, you know, Brian, he comes down here and he gets lucky and he spanks all of our butts on our home water. You know, he gets right, and then we had to hear about that. So of course we had to hear about that. But that's what it was, and that's what is really fun to me. It's I don't like to tournament fish too much, but during that, we have it. We'll tell you about this guy in a minute. But during that same tournament, you know, I'm on the blue sky. I'm out in the lily pads. I'm like, man, I got up at 6 a.m. I'm just going to shut my eyes for a minute. I probably dozed off for 45 minutes, you know, sunbathing. I took my sandals off and was just soaking it up, you know, in the middle of a tournament. In that same tournament we had, that's when Eldridge took a pizza break. So our buddy Josh, he paddles back to the ramp. He gets off his kayak, and it was it Durbin that asked him to go get him a Dr. Pepper or something?
I forget. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, a bottle of water probably, because it was like 100 degrees out.
Oh, so I think Josh got off the water because he wasn't feeling good because it was like 100 degrees out. Right? It was terrible, and so he's like halfway dehydrated. And one of the guys, I can't remember who it was, but somebody was at the boat ramp like, "Hey man, will you go get me a bottle of water, bring it back?" And Josh is on his last leg. He's already feeling like crap. He's like, "Yeah man, I'll go get you a bottle of water." So he walks 150 yards to the campsite.
Yeah.
Some water, walks 150 back, and then he's like, I think I want to go get some pizza. So he goes to the commissary. He eats pizza. He's in his tent, you know, 100 degrees out, and then he's sick as a dog. He ends up getting sick, then going back and fishing.
Man.
It was comical, man. It was, I mean, that's the kind of stuff for me. It's like tournament fishing. It has its place, really, no doubt about it. Definitely has its place, and it's definitely grown big time. But for me, I'm an adventure guy. I want the adventure. I want the camping. I want the hanging out, man. I want the making a fire on the riverside. I want that kind of stuff. So this whole rebranding of Jackson Adventures, that really rings to me. I'm like, okay, now I feel like I have that place where I fit in even more now,
Yeah.
Definitely.
So that's what I'm looking forward to. But I know I took that and went to left field on it. But so, man, jack of all trades. You hunt, you fish, you do photography. You've been out of the country for Jackson. You do. I mean, you do some stuff like. Forgive me, I don't remember the exact name of it, but you help people who are maybe disabled or have handicaps, and you help them get
as Paddle for Tomorrow. And that was a great group, and I still try to help out as much as I can. They're more north of me, so it's difficult to get to them. And the last thing they did over in Macon, we were on outage, so I couldn't go. But they actually do. They help out anybody, special needs community. They help out wounded warriors. They do, even just underprivileged kids, and give them a chance to get out on the water. And my company, Southern Company, is actually giving them a grant or two to help out. They help buy them a trailer to haul some of the boats around to different organizations, and it's a neat thing. They actually their efforts is what gave Georgia their Special Olympic kayak team. With them helping to hold the events that they have over in on Lake. Oh, it begins with a T. It's over by Macon. So just Lake T in Macon. But we've been over there several times to help out with those events. And I mean, it's awesome. And paddling here we had a beep ball team, which is a blind softball team. They actually listen to the ball coming at it with the audible noises, and the bases beep. So they're totally unsighted. We got to put them in the water and watching how they adapt, and just now once they know their safe zones, just by the way the wind's hitting them, they know which direction to go, or listening to the cars on a bridge one way, and they know which direction to go, and you can't catch them. And I went there thinking that I was going to be of some help, but in the roundabout way, I was the one that was helped that day, seeing the different abilities of folks and how they adapt and prove that, man, they got life to live. Just get out of their way. And it was pretty daggum awesome. I've been blessed to have a few adventures with them.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy, man. So
I've never heard of beat ball. That's
yeah.
Look it up. Chicago Comets is the name of the team, and they literally listen to the ball coming at them. But everybody in the crowd's got to be quiet. You can't cheer when they hit, because when they hit, the base beeps, and they have to go where the players have to get to the ball that's beeping. And if the player gets to the ball first, he's out. If he gets to the base first, or she gets to the base first, they're safe. And it's pretty awesome.
That's badass, man. That's pretty incredible. I mean, I don't know, man. You would, like you said, you would think sometimes folks with disabilities, you'd be there, like you said, you'd be there to help, and really you were the hindrance, right?
Yeah,
right.
That's basically how you broke that down. It's kind of funny. Like, I mean, just last night I was watching some documentary. This dude, he was out hiking in like Montana or something, got electrocuted, lost his arm, bolt shot out of his head, had a huge thing, whatever.
You're talking about the cook.
Yeah.
Chef.
Yeah, the chef.
He's
dude.
on Meat Eater with Steve Rennell. Yeah.
Dude,
Yep.
Craziest thing ever. But it's like, it's so funny, man. Like, in that thing, and I think a lot of folks that have hindrances like that, it's not a hindrance to them. It's a boost of energy, a boost of what's the word I'm looking for, man? Where it's just like, that's what drives them. And they end up driving right past every normal Joe, dude. And I think that's awesome. I love those stories, man.
What we see is like a tragedy. They see as it was a blessing, just like you said. It wasn't a tragedy.
Yeah.
It was something that made them go further in life than what they've probably done before the tragedy.
Yeah, exactly. That's thanks.
So that out of that bucket, it was like a drum.
Yeah.
And somebody put a drum over a bunch of electric lines that were there, that were exposed electric wires. And so he saw that bear in there, and he's like, well, what the hell is there a bear doing in there? And he went to cut the claw off of the bear. As soon as he touched that bear, he got lit up.
Yeah.
So,
man.
Yeah. And so they found it. I think he stumbled home. It took him like 2 or 3 days. You could listen to the podcast on Steve Rennell, but the guy's name, I believe, is Eduardo. something.
Well, yeah, there's a documentary. It's on Amazon Prime right now.
Yeah.
It's free. I'll look up the name here in a minute, but he like videotaped all this stuff, like while he was in the hospital, like going through it.
Yeah.
Like you see his injuries and you're like, what the hell? Like dude
Yeah.
lost a rib. They had to like take part of his forehead and move it up to the top of his head.
'Cause electricity shot out the top of his head.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
It's
it
craziness,
it
man.
was insane, man.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I didn't mean to sidetrack, but I mean that was something I saw last night. I was like watching it, and I was just totally memorized because this guy is like out hiking and climbing, bouldering out in Montana. He was in Arches National Park or something, like
Wow.
climbing boulders, man. And it's like he's like, this ain't gonna stop me. I'm gonna keep doing what I've always done, and then some.
He's got a hook too.
Yeah,
Hook.
yeah,
His
yeah.
arms are hooked, and he's out there doing all that.
Yeah, totally.
Good for him, man.
Impressive.
Human beings are awesome. Their ability to overcome is awesome. So what? All right, man. So I know a lot about you from YouTube, basically. You know what I mean? And then now I have you on Facebook, and now since I've been part of the Jackson team, I've been following you more. But it's I've been kayaking going on 6 years, man, and you were the source, and you put these videos up, and it's you catch a shoal bass, or you're catching gar, like you said, you're catching regular bass, but it's not that you're out there fishing, man. You're out there having the adventure, and I think that's what people were drawn to. And then you're like, hey, man, I got this boat. This is why I got it. This is why I like it. This is what I would change about it. This thing is heavy. You know what I mean? Like on the big boats. But you said, the way you explain the weight is such a perfect compromise. You're like, okay, it's heavy. You're not going to feel it in the water, though. The only time you're going to feel the weight is loading it and unloading it, And you're right. At the time, I was 260. I was a big dude, too. And my first kayak experience was terrible. It was absolutely terrible with a crap kayak, and it was out of fear of going through that experience again that I started researching kayaks for big dudes. You know what I mean? Like, what's the most stable kayak? And then Jackson, big rig. Okay, you get on YouTube, you look at big rig, and then you find Chris Funk, and you're like, oh, that dude's part of Jackson. In his intro, I know all of his videos, and then the water splash, you know what I mean? And then there's Chris Funk, you know what I mean? Like, I just know your stuff, you know what I mean? So, and they're all great videos, and you're picking up, kayaks, you're picking up the big rig, you're doing the comparison, you're doing the Kusa versus the Kusa H2, you're doing the big rig versus the Kusa HD, you're doing all these walkthroughs, and it's great. But the adventure of what you do, I think, is what draws a lot of people too, especially the swamp, because you're not shy about your gator adventures in the swamp, and you're not shy about one of these big freaking gators scares you. Now we had Dustin Nichols, one of our teammates. How long ago was that we had him on?
I think that was about a month ago. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was talking about gators too, and I'm like, no. And I think I've hit you up on Facebook talking about swamp fishing because I'm scared to death, but it's something I have to experience. And you're like, and it was in the summertime. You're like, don't come down now, you'll get ate up. But how do you do it, man? Because you get close to these gators. How do you?
It's one of, like for the most part is when we're in the swamp, usually it's starting in October. Now, and the reason we don't go is not because of the gators in the hot weather. It's because of the yellow flies. Yellow flies are evil. They come straight from the gates of hell. They've got a ice pick in one hand and a pocket knife in the other. When they land, they take a chunk out of you. And they're just, you don't want to be there because of the yellow flies. The gators are just a secondary threat compared to a yellow fly. But and I don't mind them that bad. You just got to know that they're kind of like them creepy folks in Walmart. If everybody's minding their own business, we're all good. But if you get one that's following you a little too close, that's the one that's going to be the hazard, and you don't want that one that's sticking too close to you. And if you're fighting a fish, when it's warmer months, they're going to come. It's like a dinner bell. They've learned, they've acclimated. It's just like the dolphins following the charter boat. They've learned that those people are going to be releasing red snapper all the time because they can't keep them hardly ever. And they've learned they're going to follow them. So the gators are the same thing. If somebody's fighting a fish, they know they can get to that fish before the person gets them in the boat a lot of the times. So it's a trained, it's not as bad as somebody feeding them, which is by far the most dangerous thing that anybody could ever do to a gator, because then they recognize people as a food source. But what they do down there is when they hear that fish splashing, they come to it. So if I'm fighting fish in any of the warmer months, even in October, if it's still warm down there, I'll get them in the boat as fast as possible. I use that landing net. I've got that yak attack net that I can drop in real quick, get them in and over where they're not sitting there just flopping on the side of the boat. And the gator will come once he sees the fish get up in the boat. He's done. He'll turn. It's no longer interesting to him, so he'll turn and go away. But
interesting.
I don't know, man.
I don't know either. Here's what I'm thinking.
If you spent 5 minutes in the swamp, in the first 5 minutes paddling out, you'll see a 2-footer, 4-footer, 3-footer, whatever going out. By the time you've hit the first 8-footer, you'll be like, oh my gosh, there's a gator. Well, then the very next turn is going to have 5 12-footers around it. By the time you've paddled past 20 or 30 of them, you'll be like, oh, it's just another gator.
You're right. Yeah. The clock right here on my life vest.
I don't know, man. Like up here in the north, it's like, oh, there's a duck, there's a swan, oh, there's another goose, there's another goose. I can't imagine like those ducks and geese being gators. I don't know. There's just something messed up about that.
Here's what I'm thinking too. Like you're in the swamp and you're on your blue sky, and they like to perch up and sunbathe.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Look, it's a nice flat blue sky. I mean, that's perfect. And there's a big 260-pound mule up here. I ain't got to do shit. But
dude, I'm glad I'm not the only one that's been thinking that way. Like I don't know.
When they come off the bank, as you're paddling along, I try not to run right by the bank because they will come off pretty fast. And I don't know if y'all saw that in one of my blue sky videos. You could see the gator comes out and he goes down, and I figure it's fine because he's going down, and he popped up. I kid you not, he was 6 feet in front of the boat. And he popped up, and when I grabbed the camera and swung it on him, you could see that he was blind on that near eye, and he couldn't see me. And that's when I was like, oh, this is going to be a bad situation. And I started backpedaling as fast as I could, and all you hear is the foam and the thrashing where the gator takes off in front of me. But yes, that one almost cost me a set of underwear.
Oh gosh, I could not imagine. So have they ever tried to beat you, dock you? Have they ever tried to come up on your boats?
No, never have. And I tell folks the worst thing you can do, of course, you run over one in shallow water. Dustin run over that manatee down there, and it threw him clean up in the air down on the Wakulla River. And that's what a gator is going to try to do. They're just trying to get away from you. It's not that they're trying to knock you out of the boat or anything. They are trying to leave the vicinity. And that's always a concern for me is when I'm paddling up in the pads down there in the swamp is I want them to know that I'm there. So I specifically I don't mind clanging my boat a little bit. I don't mind talking. And as I'm drifting, after I'm dealing with a fish, if I'm drifting into the weeds, I'm always talking. I want to, it's not because I'm half crazy. It's because I want those gators to know that somebody's coming up. I don't want to surprise one of them.
So it's kind of like a bear, right? Where you're supposed to act, be loud and act big and this and that to let them know you're there.
Figure I've been doing this for years and I ain't been eat yet, so it's working for me.
That's good. That's good. I mean, so I didn't know this Dustin manatee story. I think you need to share that with us because Dustin's one of our new co-hosts here, on Paddle.
Yeah, I didn't hear that either.
Yeah.
We were paddling. It was late in the evening, heading back over toward camp, and just run over one in shallow water, and just and that's what they'll do. If you ever Google a kayaker run it, because it's actually a guy on a stand-up paddleboard, but he runs over a manatee, and you'll see it just shoots him straight up in the air. And you got 2,000 pounds of sea cow, moving in that water, and it's like a big torpedo. So that's what it's definitely not. To me, I'm more concerned about them than I am about gators, just because it's amazing how fast unlike this fat creature those fat creatures can get. They can water and roll.
Wow. Please tell me you got pictures of that.
No, it was dark. It was just about pitch. We all had our lights up. It was just about pitch black dark, and that's why so there's no video of that. It would have been awesome, but
he had to have freaked out.
I did at that first boondoggle down there in Cars Park. There was a guy that hooked up with a fly line, and he came zipping by me in a CUDA, and he was hooked to a manatee and didn't realize, that there was one in the area that snagged it, and he couldn't break his tippet, and he was about to cut his $80 fly line. And I caught up to him in the big tuna and grabbed the back of his boat and turned sideways to get just enough drag to straighten out that hook. But I mean, he had his knife. He was about ready to cut that high dollar fly line, but he was thankful to have me as a drag anchor behind him.
Oh my God. You camp out in the swamp too, right?
Oh yes, sir. There's only 5 platforms out there, and so only 5 parties at a time, because that's a permitted camping area.
Go in detail about platforms, because most of us camp up here north. We're campgrounds. We're on the ground, right? So tell us a little bit about that.
The platforms are called chickees, actually, and chickee is a Native American word, and it's just a raised platform. It's like no different than a dock, and yes, they're only about 12 inches off the water, and it is not unusual to have resident 4 or 5 alligators underneath them, and you get your permit. I think there's 4 chickees and 2 islands that you can go to. And there, one of them's named Mixon's Hammock, and then, different areas that they've got down there, but you have a path that you travel. It's either a 1-day trip, a 2-day trip, up to a 5-day trip that you can take out there. And each person is permitted to be in the swamp during that time. So after 5 o'clock in the evening, when the swamp closes, the only people out in the swamp are those that have the permit to be on those camping platforms. And we've done that on a couple of occasions, and it is just an incredible place, and it's awesome, because you'll be sitting there laying at night and you'll hear a frog. They have a lot of pig frogs down there, and they sound exactly like a pig grunting, and you'll just hear this grunt, 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 and then you'll hear this clap. And it gets really quiet. It's like, okay, that one just got turned into something.
So where exactly is this?
It's the Okefenokee Swamp, and it's 438,000 acres down in southeast Georgia and the north end of Florida. So it actually goes from Florida into Georgia, or from Georgia into Florida. And in that 438,000 acres, there's 2 entrances that we go into. The east side is over in Folkston, and the west side's in Fargo, Georgia. And I like the one in Fargo, Georgia, at the Stephen C. Foster State Park, which is usually what we do is just day trip. We go down there and camp for 3 or 4 days in the park, and we can fish out of there on Billy's Lake, which is the first big open body of water that you come to, or we'll go fish the Suwannee Sill, which is the headwaters to the Suwannee River. And then we go back to camp and, eat good, campfire, just kick back, relax, and get up and do it all again the next day. But, behind Yellowstone, I think the Okefenokee's got to be my most favorite place on earth. And I keep telling my bride she's going to retire there, but she's not convinced of it yet.
Oh, man.
But it is a beautiful place.
Yeah.
I mean, how many gators have you hooked into and brought to the boat? I always see that on Facebook too.
And I have only had one actually steal a fish from me down there. So in all of my years of going and multiple trips, I have only had one encounter where I had one steal a fish from me. My nephew down there last year was actually bumping a worm on the bottom, had a hit, set the hook, and thought it was going to be a nice bowfin. And when he got it up, it was a 2.5 foot gator. Well, as soon as he pulled it up, he didn't know what to do with it. But Mama was coming, because that gator started hollering, and the big one. And I told him, I said, back up, and he got him up the hill. And I grabbed the baby gator and unhooked it and took it back down to the water's edge and pitched it where Mama could see that the gator was released. But that's the only time we've ever had any run-ins down there. Now, I've been a part of some gator hunts here in Alabama and Georgia. And the last threw a hook over was 12 foot 4 inches long and weighed 650 pounds and had a 44-inch tail, the circumference, so bigger than my gut. And that was an absolute giant. And that's when I quit gator hunting, because that was too much like work.
The tail was 44 inches around?
44 inches around, yes, sir. 12 foot.
That's bigger than my waist. Yeah.
He was an absolute giant. He was grown, dinosaur.
I'll stay in Illinois, man. Screw that.
Gator hunting's real big down there, though. It's real
Yeah.
big in Florida too.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. It is.
Yeah. They taste good. I've had gator. I've never had fresh gator. I've had gator at a restaurant, but it's good.
The best meat is in the jaws. It's a real lean, real just a clean white meat, and it is outstanding.
Yeah.
There's a company local here. They're always at the fishing shows, and they do a alligator like beef sticks almost. Phenomenal, dude. Phenomenal.
Man.
That's the only time I've had gator. I'm not cool.
I like eating critters.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. What's your favorite fish? Is it bowfin? Is that your favorite eating fish?
No, eating fish, believe it or not, it'd probably be it had to be a crappie. I don't know what, depending on where you're at, crappie, crappie, sockeye, or wherever you're at, what they call them. But for me, it's crappie. And then I if I can get a decent fillet inside crappie, I'd knock the sides off that thing in a New York minute. But behind that is you heard me call them McDonald's bass, but little small spotted bass. Now I release, the good spots, but anything about a pound to half a pound in that size right there is a fine eating critter. And
I don't think I've ever ate bass before. Crappie,
No.
yeah, but never bass.
And they're different than a largemouth. So I release almost all of them a largemouth, and of course I release every shoal bass I catch. But spotted bass in my area are actually an invasive species, and they're interbreeding with our shoalies, and they're displacing largemouth. And we've got almost an epidemic, which is hard to believe. It's kind of like saying you got an epidemic of pigs when everybody likes shooting them and eating them. But we've got an epidemic of spots in our area that are actually detrimental to our shoal bass. And so I don't mind, taking a few meals of those every chance I get.
Nice. You breading those up and frying them, or?
Yes, sir. Well, it's a real dense white meat. So
Okay.
I'll either roll them in some Cajun shake and fry them that way, but they're excellent blackened. And that's what I like to just, instead of doing them like a fishier or oilier fish, like a sea trout or something, I only put the blackening seasoning on one side of them, and I'll pan sear them real hot, and then serve them over some brown rice with a shot of lime juice on them, and it'll make you fight.
Man, I'm hungry
I got about
now.
10 pounds worth of crappie in the freezer. I took my son crappie fishing for the first time, and my buddy owns a charter boat. We had 6 rods on the boat, and 6 rods were down, and we're going through schools of thousands, 10,000 crappie.
Yeah.
So man, I like eating them, but there's so much work to fillet. You don't get a lot of meat, and I'm not the best fillet guy as it is, but they are good though. I like hybrid stripers.
Sorry, I had a dog jump on a cat behind me, scared me.
That's all right.
hilarious.
That's all right. My dog howled one time on one of these things. Ricketts thought there was a werewolf coming to eat me.
I'm looking
It's all
out the
good.
window. I was like, "Is that a werewolf?" I don't even know what.
Just my dog. Just my
Oh.
dog.
Yeah,
Jumping on
that's
the cat.
funny. Yeah, hybrid stripers, they're good to eat up here. Catfish, of course, but then we got crappie. That's really the only fish that people really eat up here.
Walleyes, man.
Walleyes. See, I've never
I've
caught a
never
walleye. I've never had
walleye.
walleye.
I understand over near the Jackson factory on that lake here at the Rock Island State Park. There's supposed to be a really good walleye run every year, and I still have yet. That's on my species list. I finally caught my first muskie, so I was a couple years ago I was tickled about that. But I definitely walleye is high on my list. So
Yeah.
If you want good walleye fishing, Lake Erie or Green Bay, Wisconsin. Those two spots right there. It's so funny up here, like I'm in northern Illinois, so I'm literally 10 minutes from the border of Wisconsin, and the thing is a lot of guys around this area, they'll travel up into Canada to go walleye fishing, and they'll come back and it's like, "Oh, what'd you get, man?" And they're like, biggest fish was 25, 26 inches. I'm like, dude, I've caught multiple 26-inch fish 3.5 hours away on Green Bay. And it's the same thing. Lake Erie, man, you want to talk about a fishery that was a dead sea and then came back to life and is just flourishing right now. It's unbelievable what they've done up there. Lake Erie
Right.
used to be a garbage dump, and when they went through,
Right.
cleaned that stuff up, redid all that. I mean, first time I fished Lake Erie, I caught a 4.5 pound smallmouth. I caught a couple walleye over 26 inches, which is a big fish, and then also caught some steelhead as well, man. I mean,
Wow.
just a phenomenal fishery. And I know a gal that runs a charter service out there that yellow perch, man, like 12 to 15 inches all day long. That's insane.
I've never had perch either. I heard that was good.
Dude.
Never had perch. Never had walleye. Never had sawguy.
Dude.
Around here they call the perch milkfish. And it's rare to catch them over 10 inches long. But if I get them big enough to knock sides off, I will. That's a good eating critter.
Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. What is a bowfin taste like?
It is a super white meat. There's no fishiness to it at all.
Really?
It's got a softer texture. It doesn't have as much bite to it.
Okay.
Which is why some folks call them cottonfish, but it's just a softer flesh. But I mean, the ones we've had now, we're catching them fresh. I mean, most of them, you got to knock them in the head to clean them. I mean, they're still alive, so they're, we're cleaning them fresh, and I fry them hard. But every person that I've had, even going eating them with against a warmouth or a flyer, which is two other species that are real prevalent down in the swamp, but those type fish, or even the small black catfish, which are a really, really good eating fish down in that area. Every person that's tried them has bypassed those other three super good eating fish to get back to the bowfin.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah. And nobody believes me. It's all like it's this old wives' tale that says, it's a cottonfish, or it's bony. It's not bony. You won't find a bone hardly at all. They're almost like a cartilaginous fish, where they don't have a whole lot of a skeletal structure. Like a gar. If you've ever cleaned into a gar, there's just not a lot of bones in them. It's just a straight piece of meat, and it's worth doing.
That's crazy, man. I mean, we got them up here. I've caught one on the Mississippi River. I don't know. They're just an ugly looking fish. They fight like crazy.
Oh, and hard-headed, golly, that ain't nothing but bone and teeth on the head.
Yeah.
That's the reason they're so hard to set the hook into. For the longest time, we were trying to do it with the heavier hook. And a buddy of mine, Rob Kyle, told me about fishing with a lighter wire hook, so that it would actually bend and search to find a spot to catch some perches before it popped out of their mouth. And when we downgraded the thickness of the wire on our hooks, our hookup ratio went way up higher.
Interesting.
Yep. Huh. Things you learn.
I heard gar was really good to eat too, though.
It is. Now it's like I said, it's one of them. I split them down the back and take the back straps out of them, and it is a very dense fish. Its texture is more like lobster or shrimp. It's a very dense fish, but now it's one that's really good for grilling. It'll hold up on a grill very well.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
A lot of people just throw them up on the beach. Not like people eat them, but you ever ate gar, Brian?
Never ate gar. I mean, pike's the same way. Northern pike, they're kind of like real lobstery, and they're a real slimy fish. They do have a lot of bone in them. And just this past winter, Jay Randall, we were talking about this. Jay is a goofy character, and he comes over to my house and he's like, "Bro, we're gonna go ice fishing, and we're gonna put a tip up out with a hot dog on it." And I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about?" He's like, "Dude, pike. They're gonna whatever." There's a YouTube video on our YouTube station, Jay catching a big old northern pike on a hot dog. So we bring it back, and he's like, "Let's fillet it up and cook it." And I'm like, "All right, I've never filleted a pike." And he's like, "Oh, dude, I got a YouTube video right here. Shows how to do it." I'm like, "All right, Jay, let's go. And I tell you what, dude, it's kind of like that lobstery meat. I mean, I pan seared it in like a little bit of olive oil, and I diced it up in chunks, and we ate tacos. We use that as the meat in tacos, dude. Phenomenal. Now we're all
tacos.
about what's that?
I said now you're all about pike tacos.
Yeah, dude. I mean, we're all about it down here or up here. So
Was that your cat again?
Yes.
I thought that was a little baby. I was like, dude, your kid's crawling around.
In this house. No, we have a baby big dumb dog here, and that doesn't want to stay off the cat. So
That is hilarious.
my boy's dog Thor has decided to make sport of my poor Chihuahuas and the cat. So, but
That's funny. That's funny.
Oh, man.
Come here. Let me see.
Let's see that.
There we go. Special guest.
Yeah, Big Goofy. Come ahead.
That's a cute dog, man.
Heck yeah.
He's a mess. He's back on the cat again.
That's hilarious.
Well,
Ryan, you got any more questions?
Yeah, what kind of adventures you got coming up, man? What can we see coming out of Camp Funk in the near future, man?
My first thing is I've got to get back down to the swamp. That's hopefully going to be next month. That wintertime is the best because it keeps the bugs down to get down there, and then also the wildlife is a little bit more. You got to think if you're not worried about getting eaten by gators, you tend to be a little bit more frivolous with your activities. So otters come out. You'll see a lot more deer in the water and a lot of different things like that. You'll see a lot more wildlife in that area.
That's cool.
So I'll be heading that way, and then hopefully Jameson Redding and I'll be going down to Point O'Shane here, and pretty soon chase some reds. I'm definitely looking forward to that trip again.
Yeah.
And then down with Sissa, I'm hoping to hit back down there around February when the fish start spawning, because I didn't get a big green fish this trip. I caught a couple nice Swannies this past trip, but I definitely wouldn't mind getting back on one of the big green ones.
Heck yeah.
Gators are not active in the wintertime?
They're out, but they don't feed if their body temperature drops below, and I think it's in the 80s, 85. They can't digest their food, so they'll be out and they'll be swimming, but they will not feed and they're not aggressive. So the otters will swim around them. They'll swim. Then they won't feed. They won't try to come after your fish. They won't do anything. All they want to do is stay warm, digest whatever they ate through the summer and fall, and stay alive. But they will not start feeding again till usually on into end of March and into April when things warm up, when their body temperature rises.
I will come fish with you then.
Yeah.
Come on. Invitation's open. I'll tell you, if you do, and I had a Jim Salmons down there and Will from Jackson.
Yeah.
So I had a Canadian and a Californian, which it was almost like this was some sort of a bar joke, a Canadian, a Californian, and an Alabama redneck go to the swamp. But I think both of them got to see, you get to see why somebody appreciates something. And
Sure.
I said in one of my videos, that it's a place that some folks say it's God-forsaken, but to me it ain't. It's a place that he's put so many neat critters and the flora, the fauna, just the experience. And then for me, as I work in an industrial setting, so I'm always around noise. To be in a place that's so quiet that you can hear your own heartbeat, your own blood pumping through your veins, I love it, and I crave the wildness of the swamp.
Amen, man. Heck yeah.
And y'all are welcome. Come on.
I got 5 more vacation days I got to burn up before December 31st.
Ooh, man.
Yeah, I know. And you're only let's see, it takes me 7 hours to get to Atlanta from here. So if you're in Alabama, I wonder how many hours it would take. Probably 10.
About the same.
About the same.
Yeah.
About 7.
For me, it's 4.5 hours over, and I'm right outside of Columbus, Georgia.
Yeah.
So that'd be your 2 hours to Columbus from Atlanta. So you could shoot over that away, but and of course I always tell folks like they did. I mean, man, I've got boats, I've got gear. If you could fly down there somewhere, get close, I'll come get you, and we'll go.
Yeah.
That way you got a haul.
You got one of those like Tri-Cat blue skies, because I'll go on that with Ricketts, and then if there's a gator, he's going over. That's all I'm saying, bro.
The DT, and you put the seat really close to the flag.
Oh, you're going to see the second man known to walk on water. You see Gator come after me. It'll be Jesus and me. The only 2 men to do it. I promise you that.
Oh, that's cool, man. I got one last thing, and this is something I picked up as we were sitting here talking. It seems like you're a man of many analogies. I think analogies is the correct thing. I heard dumb as a sack of hammers, knock the sides off that, and a New York minute. You got any other good ones you could throw out there for us?
Well, you always got to watch out where you step because things are slicker than house snot on a wet limb. That's always a good one, you know. And if these kayak prices don't settle down, they're all about as high as a giraffe's testicles. So we got to watch that out too.
That is the trend with kayaks, man. You think it's the inflation going on with kayak prices. I wish it'd go on in our pockets, you know,
Exactly.
to buy these things. So
that was why I love that bite so much. I mean, to me, it was a value in a boat that everybody could afford. You know, it wasn't something that I didn't have to sell an arm and a leg to get it. You know.
Yeah. Well, now they have the rec line too, the rec bite. Mm-hmm. So you know, only $100 difference between that and the fishing. And are you gonna rock the bite FD? You gonna give that a shot?
No, I'm not as much of a peddler. To me, the paddling is it's almost medicinal. I love the rhythm. I love the sound. You know, and I pedaled over in Panama the whole time, and I did better than what I figured I would, but I still would have. I'm a paddler, man. At heart, I love the rhythm of it. I love the feel of it. I just feel like I'm doing more, you know, when I'm doing that. And I will probably be a paddler until the day that I give all this stuff up and run big boats and trolling motors, you know.
Yeah, right on. Right on, man. Yeah, that's awesome. Dude,
I don't know. I kind of like both.
You know, and it's the thing, the beauty is the options, you know. Yeah. I mean, it's great because and that's one thing I did learn about the Coos FD over in Panama. The first day I was so jacked up and dehydrated, I cramped so bad I couldn't pedal anyway. So I paddled it for half the day, following all the guys that were pedaling it, and survived. You know, right. I didn't know that the guide had extra water, so I was metering. I was like sipping mine. You know, I'm over there dying like a California raisin, all shriveled up. You know, and I didn't know that Adam Fisk had extra water with him. And we get back over there, and I'm like, I just wanted to. Did anybody have anything left in their jug? I want to lick the cap, you know. And he's like, dude, I got all this over here, you know. I about jumped on him to get to that water. But, I was so cramped up, I was like Emperor from Star Wars.
I find that I like pedaling when I have a lot of water to cover, and I like paddling when I don't. You know, like on rivers, paddle all day long. If I'm on a river, I want to be. Unless it's a big river like the Ohio River, then I'll pedal.
If I'm running like that bait rod, one rod, or a troll or whatever, I would say I'd be pedaling. But when I'm bass fishing, I usually have 3 rods in front of me, and I'm constantly going back and forth. So anything, the pedaling it doesn't work out. It's like I'm going to break something, I'm going to lose something. It just doesn't work out good for me. So I just give me my paddle.
I'm also a guy that likes organization on my kayak, and I feel like sometimes the pedals get in my way. Yeah, like they take up that space, and it drives me nuts. I like a clean work area, you know.
See, I organize like an F5 tornado, so that's everything's going to get tangled in my boat.
Oh man, this has been a fun one. I hate to end this one.
Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah.
Appreciate y'all having me.
Yeah, no sweat, man. You want to give a shout out to any of your sponsors, supporters, YouTube channel, social media, stuff like that, man, where guys could go check out your videos and stuff?
Well, it's Chris Funk, the Feral One is my YouTube channel, and I still have it. I don't even get paid for that stuff. I have it just free, so I do it more for my memories and helping other folks out. So if y'all want to jump on there and subscribe, that'd be cool. I love seeing that, and I love good comments for folks. And I still do all this. I still work with Jackson, and I work with Bending Branches, and I love them folks, and thankful for what they've allowed me to do. I love seeing my work, you know, to hit the mark. But the best part about any of this is the people, you know, the folks that I've met through Jackson that are more like brothers now than they were, you know, just fellow teammates. To me, that's that's important. And then, and sisters too. I mean, Miss Jean down in Florida, and the folks that I've been able to fish with and hug necks with. And it's just, to me, that's the best part of all of what we do. And I think that's what keeps this community, whether you tournament fish or not, or you pedal or you paddle, or whether you fly fish or tenkara or whatever, the best thing about any of this is the blood, sweat, and tears that makes us a family. And if we keep remembering that going forward, this will be a good community to stay a part of.
Mm-hmm. Amen. Brother Funk laying the smackdown on y'all.
Yo. Philosophizing.
I dig it. Well, we appreciate it, my man. We appreciate you taking the time out to sit down and chat with us this evening. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and
yeah, absolutely.
I think that about the only time I'm going to go down south to fish is in the winter months when gators are not hungry. So,
come on, I'm telling you, starting October, anytime October to April, then the swamp.
We're good.
We're good to go.
I'm in.
Just take me with you.
Yeah, all right. We can make that happen, my man. We can make that happen.
They won't eat you. They're too busy digesting the other body in their belly. So we're.
That's all the rest of the Canadians.
Oh man, that's funny.
That's awesome.
Plug in your social media, man. You're on Instagram, Facebook. You're obviously on YouTube, so plug that in.
It's Feral One Photography on Instagram, but I'm trying to think. It's like Feral _1_ photography. So see, y'all got me all sideways. I don't even remember all that stuff. But and I'm pretty easy to find anywhere else. But I'm the only Chris Funk, the Feral one, and the Feral FERAL, like a wild hog. I'm the only Chris Funk, the Feral one on YouTube, so you can find me there.
Yeah, nice. Your profile picture on there is like a hatchet or something.
Yeah, it's actually, and that's gator blood on that.
Is it?
The story on that one was we had actually got a gator and were posing beside it to take a picture. And when the camera autofocus light came on, I saw the gator's pupil dilate. So I knew he wasn't dead. So I jumped in the truck and grabbed it was a throwing hatchet I had left over in there and finished him off in the parking lot.
Dude.
So, yes, that's alligator blood on that hatchet.
Let's hear that story. I was gonna say let's wrap it up, but I think when you get ready to take a picture and you see it's like a dinosaur.
Yeah,
you got to talk about that.
My buddies were behind it, and I was on the camera, fixing to set the self timer to jump in behind them. And we've already had the gator in the boat, and everything, and had him out to take a picture of him. And when I hit the start of the self timer, when the light came on for the autofocus on the camera, I saw the gator's pupils dilate. And right as he started to move, and I jumped up the truck, grabbed that hatchet, and took him right by the brainstem. So, yeah, that is actual blood on that hatchet.
I am not a man.
How do you compete with this? We have Josiah on before, right?
Yeah.
He fishes next to grizzly bears.
Yeah,
Literally
comes face to face with them in the middle of the dark. Then you got this dude just busting out hatchets on gators as their eyes are dilating.
I don't like grasshoppers a whole lot, so it kind of weighs out. I'm not a huge fan of grasshoppers, but I will kill gators, so it all comes out in the wash. So that's my girly man side. I don't like big grasshoppers, so.
Oh, that is hilarious. That is too funny. If it's one thing I've learned being a Jackson teammate, dude, is we have some interesting
characters. Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
Not team members, characters.
It's seriously, it's awesome. It is absolutely awesome.
Yeah,
and it makes you. I love my wife, I love my family, but sometimes I wish I was just single so I could just go around the country and hang out with everybody. Right. You know what I mean? Like, man, it's.
Sorry,
I'm gonna tell
honey.
my wife. I guess my birthday is in 3 weeks, so I'm gonna burn some vacation time. I want to try to come down there and get some swamping.
All right, man. Like I said, I've got a time coming up. Hit me up. I'll let you know when it's going to be.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Here I get to do whatever the hell I want.
Oh, man. Well, with that being said, guys, until next time, tight lines, smooth paddling.
Y'all take care.